The Indiana Fever have just pulled the curtain back on what might be the biggest scandal in WNBA playoff history, and no one seems willing to talk about it. What unfolded in Game 5 of their 2024 playoff clash with Las Vegas wasn't just a bad night of officiating. It was so obviously manipulated that even neutral fans are demanding a full-scale investigation. Think about this for a moment. Aaliyah Boston fouls out on calls that didn't even exist, all while being hammered under the rim. Kelsey Mitchell gets hacked so brutally she ends up in the hospital with cramps caused by pure exhaustion and contact. Odyssey Sims drives to the basket, gets clipped, and somehow she's the one tagged with the foul. Through it all, the whistle only seemed to work in one direction, Vegas's. If you think that's an exaggeration, wait until you hear what truly went down in those final minutes, and what players are saying about it now in 2025. But before we dive into the full breakdown, smash that like button if you believe referees should be held accountable for what they did to Indiana, and drop a comment telling us which call made your blood boil, because there were more than enough to choose from. This wasn't an isolated incident that came out of nowhere. The pattern had been building since Game 1. From the opening tip of the series, something didn't feel right about how these games were being called. Every time Indiana started to heat up, every time they gained momentum, the whistles suddenly started flying, and always in favor of Vegas. Aaliyah Boston was whistled for moving screens that were picture-perfect legal, while Aya Wilson bulldozed her way through defenders without consequence. By Game 3, Vegas had taken nearly double the free throws Indiana had. How does that even happen in a playoff matchup where both teams are supposed to play hard-nosed, physical basketball? The inconsistency was unbearable. One trip down the floor, a slight bump was a foul on Indiana. The very next, a Vegas player could throw a body, and the refs acted like nothing happened. Fever head coach Stephanie White tried to keep her cool, but anyone watching could see her frustration boiling over. How can you coach your team when the rules shift depending on who has possession? How do you build a defensive plan when your best player might get penalized for simply existing in the paint? Then came Game 5, the breaking point. This wasn't ordinary bad officiating. It looked deliberate, scripted, engineered to guarantee a specific outcome. And the evidence was right there on the court for the entire world to see. Boston picked up her fourth foul on one of the softest moving screen calls you'll ever witness. The replay shows almost no contact. Then, just moments later, Megan Gustafson takes a dive worthy of an Oscar after minimal contact. And, of course, Boston is hit with another offensive foul. But the real dagger came with only 26 seconds left in regulation. Boston and Jackie Young battle for a rebound, something that happens dozens of times a night. Suddenly, the whistle blows again. Sixth foul. Boston's out. Indiana challenges, because anyone paying attention could see the call was garbage. The refs review it and somehow still confirm it. Jackie Young hits both free throws. Vegas goes ahead, and Indiana is forced to finish without their anchor, their defensive wall, their best player. That should have been the end. But it wasn't, because what happened next turned the entire arena upside down. Despite losing their star, despite being officiated into a corner, Indiana refused to surrender. Odyssey Sims turned into an unstoppable force, driving, scoring, carrying the team on her back. She finished with 27 points, taking hit after hit with no whistles in sight. Kelsey Mitchell managed 15 points before her body literally gave out from the punishment. She had to be carried off the floor with severe cramps so painful she was hospitalized after the game. Think about it. She was battered so relentlessly that her body shut down from the abuse. And it didn't stop there. Lexie was shoved so violently by Jewel Lloyd that fans demanded a flagrant review. The refs checked it and somehow ruled it a common foul. Natasha Howard got smacked across the face, and there wasn't even a stop. The Fever finished with 25 fouls against them, while Vegas lived at the line. Aya Wilson alone shot 10 free throws. Boston, who battled in the paint all game long, shot just 2. How does that even add up? How does a player getting mauled every possession walk away with only 2 free throws? Yet somehow, even against impossible odds, the Fever fought their way into overtime. Playing 5 against 8, beaten down but not broken, they clawed their way back. Odyssey Sims hit a clutch layup to tie it and send it to extra time, and the crowd lost their minds. Everyone could see it. The refs were determined to hand Vegas the win, and Indiana simply refused to let them. This wasn't basketball anymore. It was David versus Goliath. If Goliath had the officials on payroll, overtime was just more of the same. Every 50-50 ball, every borderline call went to Vegas. Every bump against Indiana was ignored, while Vegas got to the line off the softest contact imaginable. The calls were so one-sided that even the announcers couldn't hide their disbelief. You could hear it in their voices. The confusion, The struggle to explain what they knew didn't make sense. Indiana gave everything they had, but when you're fighting not just your opponent but the people controlling the whistle, there's only so much you can overcome. After the game, things only got stranger. Several players and even coaches made comments that hinted they knew exactly what had gone down, but couldn't say it outright. Lexie mentioned how the team was built for adversity and had been through this before. Read between the lines. She's saying they're used to getting robbed by the refs. Coach Stephanie White praised her players for battling through everything thrown at everything, not just the aces. These weren't random quotes. They were coded messages from people who couldn't openly speak the truth without being fined, but still wanted the world to know they saw the corruption too. Fans and media didn't stay quiet. Social media exploded. Clip after clip flooded timelines. Slow-motion breakdowns showing every missed call, every phantom whistle. Even fans with no ties to either team called it one of the most disgraceful playoff games they'd ever witnessed. Former players were tweeting in disbelief. Analysts shredded the officiating on podcasts. Everyone could see what had happened, except, apparently, the league office, which stayed completely silent. And when you step back and look at the whole series, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. This wasn't one bad night. It was a pattern, a trend that had started back in Game 1. The free throw gap, the soft fouls on Indiana's stars, the swallowed whistles on obvious hits. It all pointed to something deeper than incompetence. It looked intentional. And when you remember that Vegas were the defending champion, the team the league likely wanted in the next round for rating, everything suddenly makes perfect sense. Fast forward to 2025, and the ripple effect of that night is still being felt. The Indiana Fever have transformed into one of the most electric young squads in the league. With Caitlin Clark now running the offense and Aaliyah Boston dominating the paint, this once overlooked team has become a powerhouse. The same team that got robbed is now feared, and maybe that pain, that sense of injustice, is exactly what lit the fire that made them who they are. But that doesn't make what happened acceptable. That night, the integrity of the sport was shattered. Fans didn't watch a fair competition. They watched a predetermined out. The referees weren't managing the game. They were executing a script. And the most infuriating part? Nothing was done. No investigation. No accountability. No acknowledgement. The players deserved better. The fans deserved better. The league owed them the truth. When people tune into a playoff, they expect greatness, not manipulation. What happened in that series didn't just hurt the Fever, it damaged the entire WNBA's credibility. It made people question whether they were watching a real contest or a staged production. Think about the message that's sent. If teams believe playoff results can be swayed by officiating, if players think their best efforts might not matter because the refs already picked a winner, how do you protect the league's integrity? How do you ask athletes to give everything when the game itself might be rigged? How do you ask fans to invest time, money, and passion into something that might already be decided? The 2025 season has proven Indiana is the real deal. They've got the star power, the coaching, and the resilience to compete with anyone. But the fact remains, they shouldn't have had to wait this long to prove it. They shouldn't have been cheated out of their moment in 2024 because someone behind the curtain wanted a different storyline. They earned that shot on merit, and it was taken from them by officials who forgot that their job is to enforce fairness, not influence out. What makes it even worse is the silence. The league wants everyone to forget, to move on, to pretend that Game 5 never happened. But the fans haven't forgotten. The players haven't forgotten. Every time Indiana steps on the court, there's still a fire burning from that night. They're not just playing basketball. They're fighting to prove that heart and talent can overcome corruption. That no matter who tries to pull the strings, the truth will always come out. The real question now is, will anything change? Will the league finally act? Will there be systems in place to make officiating transparent and accountable? Will referees face consequences when their bias decides a playoff series? Or will we just keep watching games where the outcome feels prearranged, where some teams always seem to get the benefit of the doubt? As this new season unfolds, as Indiana keeps rising, we can't let that night fade from memory. They didn't just lose a playoff game. They had it stolen from them in front of millions. And the fact that they came back stronger, that they refused to let it define them, says everything about their spirit. But make no mistake, Game 5 was a disgrace, a dark stain on the league, a moment when the sport failed its own players and fans. And until someone takes real responsibility, that stain will remain. The Indiana Fever deserved better. The fans deserved better. The game deserved better. Ignoring it doesn't erase it. It guarantees it'll happen again. If you made it this far, you're probably just as fired up as we are. Let us know in the comments if you think the league should reopen the investigation into that series. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're not done yet. We'll keep digging, keep exposing, and keep telling the truth about what really goes on behind the scenes in the WNBA. The players deserve a voice. The fans deserve honesty. And we're going to make sure they get it.